I'm Candace Hunter.
And I'm Sue Sierra Lupe.
And welcome Herbal Nerd Society members. It's time again for the Herb of the Month, Sue.
Yes, sir. Yep. The herb of the month this month is St. John's Wort, Hypericum perforatum.
That is a beautiful herb.
Yes, it
and
is.
And what is it that you like most about St. John's Wort?
Love that it really brings us beautiful healing to people's nerves and to their sadness. Everything just seems to dissipate.
To me, it's like an herb that chases away the darkness.
Yes.
It moves that old, dark, stuck, crappy, middle of the night terror, icky, yuck energy.
The yuckness.
The yuckness.
It really is a great summer solstice herb for us.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Definitely.
So what is it that we should know most about the forms for making medicine for St. John's Wort?
Well, we're dealing with our fresh herb. That's when we are usually collecting it. You and I, Candace, we go out and collect it together. And we are using the aerial parts. And I think the things that we like to do the most is we use it in tincture and in oil. And we want a nice, fresh, when you squish the plant itself, then you're going to see some beautiful squishy hypericin, which is a reddish purple color.
Yeah, in fact, you can see in the slide that we have up here, the two jars, the one on the right-hand side that has more red to it, that's showing all that red there. That was a tincture that got started.
Yeah, it happened really fast.
It did.
All of that beautiful alkaloid comes out very quickly with the alcohol.
Yep, and then the jar that's next to it is the oil, which later was poured in the leftmost photo. That's the oil being poured out to be strained and all of that.
Yeah, indeed. Although the oil does take a little bit longer to extract, it's well worth the wait because, of course, that oil can be thrown into salves.
Salves and balms.
Yeah, and it can combine well with other herbs and essential oils.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people have used the dry for capsules and teas, but honestly, we say it's just not as good as using the fresh for our tinctures and oils.
Yes, and if you're looking to use it for any of the uses for which it has been researched, you're going to want to stick with the fresh because the dried stuff doesn't really have that inulin.
Oh, the hypericin?
Hypericin.
Yeah, because it's water soluble.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So when it dries, it starts to disappear.
Evaporates. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately.
We got some harvest tips for you.
Yes, indeed. The St. John's Wort can look like other herbs like tansy, which actually blooms at a little later time, but it has those beautiful 5 little petals.
Yep.
And it's a little kind of shrub, although sometimes you see it as a single stalk, very small, depending on the area, how much water it gets, etc.
It usually looks kind of like open and weedy.
Yes. Yeah, very open and weedy. And if you crush it, again, you're going to see that purple color on your fingers. And if you look at the photo of the hand, then you can see a little bit of purple on the fingers of the person holding that flower. And that's that alkaloid that is so healing. Okay. It also has kind of a reedy looking roots.
Yep, and the perforatum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's because the leaf itself, if you hold the leaf up to the sun or a light, then you can see these tiny little holes in the leaf. And those are the perforations that leads to perforatum for the species name. And actually, that's kind of a little factory in which the alkaloid is made inside the leaf itself.
Yep.
So all of the healing really comes from the aerial parts, the leaf and the flower.
So if you're crushing, it's St. John's Wort and you're crushing it, but you're not seeing the red purplish color, then it's not ready to be harvested or it's beyond ready to be harvested.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so the other thing too is using a scissors.
Oh yes, please use scissors for when you're harvesting it. And you got to go quickly because as we said, those constituents are water soluble and they can disappear very quickly. Although I will say that I have put St. John's Wort out that has a lot of Klamath beetles. There's these little kind of shiny purplish colored
they're
beetles.
the same color as the stuff that you squish.
Exactly.
Because they're eating the stuff that you squish out.
Yeah, and they were brought in to try to control St. John's Wort because it is an invasive weed in
the Klamath
North
Valley
America.
area.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, Klamath weed is another name for it, and those are Klamath beetles. And I put it out on a white sheet, and those little crawly bugs crawled onto the white sheet, and I was able to shoo them all out the door that way.
Nice.
And I let it wilt just a little bit, but not too much, and put it very quickly into my oil and tincture.
Yeah, so one of the keys is that if you're processing it, if you've just harvested it, you want to move into turning it into medicine immediately.
Yes.
And to not delay on that.
Yeah, don't let it sit overnight, or certainly don't let it sit for another day, because it can, you'll be disappointed with what you have.
Yeah, it won't do well.
Yeah.
You also want to avoid extreme temperatures, and you want to avoid sunlight with your finished medicines.
Right, yeah, because those all of those properties can be damaged by the sun exposure.
So let's talk a little bit about the properties of St. John's wort. It is antidepressive. That's something that's gotten a lot of press for, but it's
Right.
not really made, or doesn't really work well for all forms of depression.
That's right, yeah. Well, and depression is another one of those things that's really more of a symptom of
Yeah.
other things. So it's good for mild to moderate depression, and it does increase the serotonin levels in the body, and that helps with, it's been used to help increase your SSRI, the selective serotonin uptake, reuptake inhibitors. So it's good for people that would have a prescription, or people have the option of prescription of Prozac or Zoloft or different things like this. So it's a good alternative for folks like that. It's a nice thing to try instead of some of those expensive prescription medications. And also is really great for things like PMS or menopause or seasonal affective disorder.
Yep, or adolescent depression sometimes can be helped by it.
Yep.
And a lot of times I think the reason that it's helping there is that it's helping the digestive system move.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a kind of a key. In Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine, it's often used to help move what's called heat toxins.
Yeah.
So it's moving energies that have been stuck,
Yeah.
essentially.
It's really great for depression that is also accompanied by anxiety.
Yes.
That's what I have noticed. And, if you get migraines, and anxiety and migraines and depression, all of those together, if you have that little packet, because it ups your serotonin levels, and it's really good for that. The serotonin works with the liver to make 5-HP, and that's really good for it's in your blood platelets and your brain and your digestive system, and it all works together to kind of not only heal the outside scars, but the scars that kind of happen inside the brain and the liver too.
Yeah, in fact,
good for healing that.
it's one of the things it does really well that I've used it for is helping to heal or eliminate or alleviate depression that comes after a long-term illness, or when you're stuck for whatever reason. I mean, for me, it's happened when I've had like the flu that just lingers forever, and you're just worn out and you feel fatigued, and then you start to feel depressed because don't have your energy back. I've used St. John's wort to help me get through that before, and that's worked really nicely.
Right.
It's also good for when you've got nightmares. People who have nightmares, I know that you've mentioned using it for PTSD, and I think it's working much in the same way.
Yeah.
As a flower essence, we talk about it helping people who have an overexpanded energy field, and that happens especially with folks at night, people who tend to have night terrors, particularly vivid dreams, and they wake up tired the next day.
Oh, boy.
Or it can be, garden variety nightmares as well, but you're waking up tired, typically waking up tired no matter how many hours of sleep you get. A lot of times that can be your energy field is just expanding too far while you're sleeping. So a little bit of topical St. John's wort can help pull that back in, and then it'll alleviate most of the symptoms.
Right.
If you're looking at something like a PTSD, or you've got a really serious nightmare that's being sourced in a traumatic incident or something like that, you may need to get further help to clear that. But the St. John's wort can help on that process.
Yeah. Well, some people also that have things like hepatitis, or they have problems with their liver, then it's really good for liver cell regeneration. And for people that have a hard time, again, with seasonal affective disorder, if they have a hard time stabilizing their vitamin D levels.
Yeah.
Because it really makes you more photosensitive.
Yes. And then did you want to talk about the nerve repair?
Regeneration?
Yeah, because that's one of those things that I find almost miraculous that St. John's wort does.
Yeah.
Is help with nerve regeneration.
It really does. A lot of massage therapists use St. John's wort oil, and they have noticed this amazing transformation in people that have damage from fairly significant damage from injuries.
Yeah,
People
and
that
damage.
trees fall on them or things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and like sciatica pain and that sort of thing.
Yes.
And then also neuropathy.
Yes, neuropathy.
Yeah, and that's one that, like, people who are, for instance, diabetic can end up with neuropathy.
Right.
And it isn't necessarily like an obvious direct trauma, but their system's suffering.
Yeah, it's good for external use for
Yeah.
help with that. Yeah, definitely. But there is something that we need to mention with that photosensitivity. That means that if you sunburn easily, you better be very careful.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with using internally. I think photosensitivity is like more likely to occur for internal
Right.
use rather than if you're using it topically.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing too is that it can change how your pharmaceuticals work.
Right, because a lot of the pharmaceuticals are they transform in the liver or they store in the liver. And if you are one of those people that take medication that you have to have blood work for, this is not an herb for you because it will help take things out of the liver. And like we talked about earlier, it does do a lot of damage. Sorry, it does do a lot of transformation of the liver. So
Right.
that's something to keep an eye on. It's really important if you have some of these MAO inhibitors or different things like that, then you're talking to your doctor before taking anything like that.
Well, and also you'll want to make sure that you're monitoring your levels of whatever pharmaceuticals you are on. If your doctor isn't sure if St. John's wort is going to affect it. So you want to monitor those levels really closely.
Right.
Because if you start noticing the levels changing, then you'll need to adjust dosage,
Yeah.
or you need to stop taking St. John's wort or adjust that dosage.
Right. And again, this is for taking it internally. Taking it topically, there's no research that supports that taking it topically will affect any of those blood enzyme levels. So it's fine for people that, they want to just rub it in if they have muscle injuries or they're trying to help with scars or different things like that. But if you are taking it internally and you're on medication, that's a caution, and you need to talk to your qualified healthcare professional about that.
So how can people get more information on St. John's wort?
Well, we have a whole lot of resources on our website, the Practical Herbalist, and we have some recipes there to help. There's a salve that we have, a recipe. It's a very easy herb to work with. And it's in some of our tincture blends and different things like that. So,
If you really want to dig into St. John's wort, we also have an herbal folio.
yes, we do.
So
And it's pretty inexpensive. You can buy that on Amazon.
Yep.